You walk into Walmart on a Tuesday morning, you see a man in a black hat, 2 carts, stacked high, 11 items, none of them over $5. You glance at what he is buying and it looks like nothing. Salt, vinegar, beans, a spool of string, the kind of items most men your age walk right past. But that man is not shopping, he is preparing. And what he knows about those 11 items could keep your family warm, fed, and lit when every house on your street goes dark. What he knows comes from a 1937 Pennsylvania Dutch ledger that almost nobody outside Lancaster County has ever read. And by the end of this video, you will have read it too. The Amish have been quietly preparing for 332 years. They never stopped, they never started either, because for them it was never preparation. It was just Tuesday. And what they buy at Walmart every single week is the same list of 11 items that most Americans walk past without a second glance, never realizing that those 11 items are the entire foundation of a self-sufficient life that does not depend on a single utility company, a single grocery chain, or a single government agency. Before this video is over, you will know every one of those 11 items by name. You will know where to find them at your Walmart, and you will know what your grandfather knew that you were never taught. Everything you need is already at the Walmart 5 minutes from your house. The only thing missing is the knowledge of what to grab and why. And by the time this video ends, you will have it. The first time I drove out to Holmes County, Ohio, I spent 2 hours sitting at a kitchen table with no electric light, watching a woman named Mrs. Hostetler cook a full supper for 9 people while a thunderstorm took out power for the whole township. She did not flinch. She did not even look up. She fed 9 people that night: grandchildren, husband, elderly father. Nobody went to bed cold. Nobody went to bed hungry, and nobody in that house has ever once depended on a power company to keep them alive. You do not need to build a new home for any of this. You already own everything you need. You just need to know what to buy on the way home tonight. Let us start with the first item, because it is the one nobody respects until the lights go out. Salt. Plain white iodized salt. The blue cylinder, Walmart sells it for under $1. The Amish buy it by the case, not because they like salty food, but because salt is the oldest preservation tool on Earth. And during a blackout, it becomes the difference between a freezer full of meat that rots in 48 hours and a pantry full of cured pork that lasts through winter. The Old Farmer's Almanac documented the standard Pennsylvania Dutch salt curing ratio over 100 years ago: 1 pound of salt for every 10 pounds of meat. Pack it tight, layer it thick, and a hog quartered on Tuesday is still feeding your family in February. When the refrigerator dies, salt is what saves the protein you already paid for. I watched a family in Lancaster County save an entire side of beef during a 4-day ice storm in 2014 using nothing but salt, a wooden crate, and a cold cellar. The neighbors with chest freezers lost everything. The Amish lost nothing. But salt does more than cure meat. It pulls moisture out of vegetables for storage. It cleans cast iron without ruining the seasoning. It melts ice on the porch step so the 80-year-old grandmother does not break a hip walking to the outhouse. It draws infection out of a wound when mixed with warm water. 1 blue cylinder, 8 different jobs, and almost every American house has exactly 1 container of it, sitting half empty in a cabinet, treated like seasoning when it should be treated like insurance. The second item is white vinegar. The cheap gallon jug, $3.24 at most Walmart locations. The average American family spends over $600 a year on cleaning supplies. The average Amish family spends about $30. The difference is 12 gallons of vinegar and a bar of homemade soap. But cleaning is the small story. The big story is preservation. A glass jar of cabbage pickled in vinegar and salt stays edible on a pantry shelf for up to 2 years if sealed properly. 2 years from a vegetable that would rot in your refrigerator drawer in 3 weeks. The Amish learned this from German immigrants who arrived in Lancaster County in the 1730s, fleeing religious persecution and carrying preservation methods that had kept their families alive through European winters for centuries. Those methods crossed the ocean, survived the Industrial Revolution, and are sitting on the shelf at Walmart for $3.24, and almost nobody is buying them for the right reason. During a blackout, vinegar disinfects water containers. It strips mineral buildup from a hand pump It preserves eggs in a water glass solution that keeps them edible for 8 months without refrigeration. 1-gallon jug does the work of $100 of specialty products, and it never expires. The third item is dried beans: pinto, navy, black, kidney. Walmart sells 1-pound bags for under $1.50. The Amish buy them in 20-pound sacks because they understand something the American shopper has forgotten. A pound of dried beans contains more usable protein than a pound of fresh chicken, costs a quarter of the price, and stores for 30 years if kept dry. 30 years. I want you to sit with that number. The chicken in your freezer right now will be inedible in 72 hours without power. The beans on the bottom shelf at Walmart will outlive your grandchildren. A Brigham Young University food storage study published in 2018 tested pinto beans that had been sealed in Mylar bags for 32 years. The beans cooked normally. The protein content had degraded by less than 4%. 4% over 3 decades. There is no other food in the American grocery store that performs like that at that price point. And the Amish have known it for 3 centuries. They serve beans 3 or 4 times a week, not because they are poor, but because they are not stupid. When the grid goes down, the family that has 50 pounds of dried beans in the basement eats. The family that has a freezer full of microwave dinners learns a hard lesson about what real food actually is. The fourth item is the one that changed how I see my own house, and I want you to pay close attention because this is where the real money lives. Walmart sells a heavy cotton bed sheet for under $5. The Amish buy them in stacks, and they do not put them on the bed. They hang them in doorways. They nail them across hallways. They use them to seal off rooms. Because the single biggest energy drain in the American home is not the refrigerator. It is not the water heater. It is heating empty space. Department of Energy guidance has long recommended closing off unused rooms and sealing doorways to reduce residential heating costs. On a $400 winter heating bill, the savings can be significant, and it costs you nothing. No insulation contractor, no window replacement, no new furnace. Just one closed door and one decision to stop heating empty rooms. The Amish have done this since the day they built their first house, because they never had cheap energy to waste. You have had cheap energy your whole life, and now that it is no longer cheap, the old way is the only way that still makes sense. But during a blackout, that sheet does something even more important. It traps the heat from a single wood stove or kerosene heater inside one room. It turns one room into a survival room. 18 degrees outside, no power, no furnace, and the room behind that cotton sheet stays above 60. I have stood in one of those rooms. I have felt the difference. And I have watched a $4 bed sheet do what a $15,000 heating system could not do without electricity, which brings me to something darker that I need to tell you before we go any further. You were never supposed to know any of this, not because there is some grand conspiracy with men in suits sitting around a table. It is simpler and uglier than that. Every dollar you spend on a contractor to insulate your attic is a dollar somebody earns. Every dollar you spend on a propane delivery is a dollar somebody earns. Every dollar you spend on a smart thermostat that optimizes your bill by 4% is a dollar somebody earns. But a cotton sheet hung in a hallway, nobody earns anything from that. There is no industry behind it. No commercial, no magazine ad, no influencer in a sponsored video telling you about it. The knowledge is free, the materials are cheap, and the result is permanent. That is exactly the kind of knowledge that gets buried. The Pennsylvania State University Extension Service published a bulletin in 1952 on rural home winterization that recommended exactly this technique: closing off rooms, sealing doorways with heavy fabric, concentrating heat in one living space. By 1978, that bulletin had been quietly removed from circulation, replaced by glossy brochures about central heating efficiency. The knowledge did not disappear. It just stopped being shared. The Amish kept sharing it because they had no glossy brochures to replace it with. The fifth item is wool. Walmart sells a queen-size fleece blanket for around $4.88. Not pure wool, but wool blend works, and the price is what matters. The Amish layer them on every bed from October to April. 2 on the bottom as a thermal barrier between body and mattress, 3 on top. When the power fails in January, your bed becomes the warmest place in the house, and you can sleep through a 40-degree indoor temperature without shivering. The body produces about 350 BTUs of heat per hour during sleep. Trap that heat with 3 layers of wool blend, and you are warmer in a powerless house at 3 a.m. than most Americans are with the furnace running at 68 degrees. Test it tonight if you want. Move one blanket from the closet to the foot of your bed, drop the thermostat by 5 degrees. You will sleep better and your January bill will drop noticeably. The sixth item is matches. Strike Anywhere matches, the old-fashioned kind, sold in boxes of 250 for under $3. Not lighters. Lighters depend on butane, which depends on a supply chain, which depends on functioning gas stations. Matches depend on nothing except dry wood and a rough surface. The Amish keep a tin of matches in every room of the house, sealed against moisture, because the first thing that happens in a blackout is you cannot find a light. The second thing that happens is your phone battery dies. The third thing that happens is you discover that your gas stove has an electric igniter and will not light without a match. The seventh item is candles. Walmart sells a 20-pack of unscented household candles for under $4. One candle produces about 80 lumens of light, enough to read by, and burns for 7 to 9 hours. The Amish do not romanticize candlelight. They use it because it works, and they place candles strategically, one in the kitchen, one in the bathroom, one in the main living area. 3 candles light a small house adequately for an entire evening at a cost of about 30 cents per night. Compare that to the cost of replacing a freezer full of food, and you understand why the Amish never panic when the grid fails. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. I do not care if your house was built in 1962 or 1998 or last year. The technique I am about to share works in every existing home in America, requires no permit, no contractor, no inspection, and costs less than $15 total to implement. And it is the single biggest blackout preparation you can do this weekend. The 8th item is a roll of heavy, clear plastic sheeting. Walmart sells a 10 by 25 foot roll for around $4.50 in the paint section. This is the secret to surviving an extended winter blackout in an existing home, and almost no American homeowner knows about it. The technique is called interior storm window sealing, and the University of Minnesota Extension documented it in a 1979 energy conservation study that found it reduces heat loss through windows significantly, through the single biggest source of heat loss in any American home built before the 1990s. Here is how you do it. Cut the plastic sheeting 2 inches larger than your window frame on every side. Tape it to the inside of the window frame using ordinary masking tape, sealing all 4 edges completely. Leave about 1 inch of air gap between the plastic and the glass. That trapped air becomes an insulating layer that performs almost as well as a modern double-pane window. During a blackout, this single technique can mean the difference between an indoor temperature that drops to 35 degrees overnight and one that holds at 55. That is the difference between survival and a hospital bill. The Amish do not use plastic sheeting because they do not need it. Their homes were built with interior wooden shutters and triple sash windows from the start. But for you, in your 1973 ranch house with single-pane aluminum frame windows, this $4.50 roll of plastic is the single most cost-effective insulation upgrade you will ever make. I sealed all 7 windows in my own house in about 90 minutes one Saturday afternoon. The next winter, my heating bill dropped by $63 a month between November and March. That is over $300 saved in a single season from a $4.50 investment. But the plastic sheeting does something else that nobody talks about. During a summer blackout, the same technique works in reverse. Applied to windows on the sunny side of the house, it blocks radiant heat from baking the interior. A Florida Solar Energy Center study found that simple window covering reduced peak indoor temperatures during power outages noticeably. 9 degrees in a Florida July is the difference between uncomfortable and life-threatening for an elderly person. So, before I give you the last and oldest piece of this, the one buried on page 47 of a 1937 Pennsylvania Dutch ledger that almost nobody outside Lancaster County has ever read, here is where everything lives. Every item, every method, every technique I have pulled out of these communities is gathered in one place in the description below. It is called the Amish Home System. Now, stay right here, because what comes next is the reason I built this entire video around. The 9th item is dried mullein leaves. Now I know what you are thinking. You did not come here for an herbal lecture. Stay with me. Walmart sells dried mullein in the supplement aisle for under $5 a bag, and the Amish have used it for chest congestion for 300 years. The 1,937 ledger lists it in the same column as salt and vinegar. During a blackout, when hospitals are overwhelmed and pharmacies are closed and you cannot drive anywhere because the gas pumps need electricity, a hot tea brewed from dried mullein leaves has been the Amish answer to respiratory illness since they brought the practice from Switzerland in the 1700s. I watched an 83-year-old Amish grandmother named Sarah Byler brew it for her grandson during the same ice storm I mentioned earlier. By morning, his cough was gone. She had never once taken her family to a hospital for a respiratory issue in 60 years of mothering and grandmothering. The reason you have never heard of this is because mullein cannot be patented. It cannot be sold for profit at scale. There is no pharmaceutical company that will fund a study to prove what the Amish already know, because the result would not benefit anyone with a balance sheet. The knowledge was preserved by people who did not depend on the system that suppressed it. And now, because you watched this video, you have it too. The 10th item is cotton string. The plain white kitchen twine sold in the baking aisle for under $2 a spool. This is the item that most Americans look at and dismiss completely, and it is the item that the Amish consider absolutely essential. Cotton string makes lamp wicks for olive oil lamps, it hangs herbs to dry, it ties bundles of kindling, it mends torn clothing in an emergency, it serves as fishing line, it binds splints, it replaces shoelaces. One spool of cotton string does the work of 15 specialized products, and it stores forever. But here is the part that matters during a blackout. A wick of cotton string in a small jar of cooking oil or rendered fat creates a working lamp that burns for hours on a few tablespoons of fuel. The technique dates back to ancient Mediterranean households and was preserved by the Pennsylvania Dutch through every generation. When the candles run out and the matches are precious, the cotton string lamp is what keeps your family in light. I have lit one. It produces about 30 lumens, enough to navigate a hallway, find a child, check on an elderly parent. It costs almost nothing to run, and almost no American knows it exists. The 11th item is baking soda, the plain orange box. Walmart sells a 1-pound box for under $1. The Amish buy it by the case because baking soda is a chemistry set in a cardboard box. It cleans teeth when toothpaste runs out. It neutralizes wound infections. It treats heartburn. It deodorizes a refrigerator that has lost power and started to smell. It absorbs moisture in a stored grain bin. It puts out small grease fires. It softens hard well water for laundry. Mixed with vinegar, it cleans drains better than commercial products. The microscopic structure of baking soda granules creates what chemists call nucleation sites, tiny pits and ridges on the surface of each grain that trap bacteria and organic compounds. That is why it works on everything from teeth to refrigerators to wounds. The Amish do not know the chemistry. They just know it works. They have always known, and now you do too. That brings us to the 12th thing, which is not really an item but a technique, and this is what I promised you at the beginning. The buried research finding that I have been holding in reserve because it is the one piece of knowledge that ties all 11 items together and transforms them from a shopping list into a survival system. In 1937, a Pennsylvania Dutch farmwife named Anna Petersheim kept a household ledger in Lancaster County. The ledger was preserved by her granddaughter and eventually deposited in the Lancaster Historical Society archives, where it sat almost unread until a folklore researcher cataloged it in 1994. On page 47 of that ledger, Anna recorded what she called the winter room method. The technique is breathtakingly simple, and as far as I can tell, it has never appeared in any modern survival guide. You take the smallest interior room of your house, not the bedroom, not the kitchen, the smallest interior room with no exterior walls. For most American houses, that means a hallway closet, a small bathroom, or a pantry. You move a mattress into that room. You hang heavy cotton sheets in every doorway leading to that room. You place a single small candle and a jar of water inside, and that becomes your survival room during an extended blackout. The science behind it is something Anna did not know, but modern thermodynamics confirms. A small interior room shares walls only with other heated interior spaces. It has no contact with cold exterior walls. The body heat of 2 adults sleeping in that room raises the temperature by 12 to 15 degrees within 4 hours. The candle adds another 4 to 6 degrees. The jar of water acts as a thermal mass that buffers temperature swings. Within one night, that little room becomes a survival pocket that holds 65 degrees indoor temperature, even when the outside drops to 0 and the rest of the house drops to 30. Anna's ledger described families surviving the brutal Pennsylvania winter of 1936, when temperatures dropped to 22 below 0 and rural electrical service was non-existent, by using this exact method. Entire families slept in pantries and hallway closets. Nobody froze, nobody got sick. The technique was passed down orally for 3 generations and almost lost to history. Modern preppers spend thousands of dollars on generators and propane heaters trying to recreate what Anna Petersheim accomplished with a closet, a mattress, a candle, and a jar of water. Here is what I want you to do this weekend. Walk through your own house and identify the smallest interior room, the one with no exterior walls. Mark it in your mind as your winter room. Buy the 11 items from Walmart. Total cost will be under $55 for all 11, and that includes generous quantities of each. Place a stack of the cotton sheets near that room. Place the candles and matches inside it. Place a wool blend blanket folded on a shelf. You do not need to do anything else right now. You have just built a blackout survival system that would have impressed Anna Petersheim, that would feel familiar to any Amish family in Lancaster County or Holmes County, and that costs less than a single tank of gas. The knowledge existed, it was buried, it was preserved by people who never depended on the systems that buried it. And now it has been handed to you across 88 years and 3 generations of forgetting. What you do with it is up to you. But you can never again say, "Nobody told you." The 11 items are not a list. They are a way of seeing. A way of walking into a Walmart on a Tuesday morning and seeing not products but possibilities. Not prices but freedom. Not aisles, but the quiet wisdom of 332 years of people who refuse to forget what their grandparents knew. The man in the black hat with the 2 carts is not preparing for the end of the world. He is living in a world that never depended on the grid in the first place. And for less than $55, you can start living in that world too. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. You go to Walmart this week. You buy the 11 items, you walk through your house and find your winter room. You hang 1 cotton sheet in 1 doorway and feel the temperature change with your own hand. You stop waiting for permission from people who have never once had your interests at heart. Now, I want to hear from you, and I am asking specifically because this audience does not always speak up. In the comments below, tell me which of the 11 items surprised you the most. Was it the cotton string lamp, the interior plastic window ceiling, the Mullen tea, or was it Anna Petersheim's winter room method that changed how you see your own house? Leave a comment with the number of the item that hit you hardest. I read every one, and I am building the next video based on what you tell me. If this video gave you something you did not have an hour ago, subscribe to this channel. Not to support me. I do not need that. Subscribe because there is a movement of Americans who are recovering knowledge that was taken from us, and we are doing it quietly, one household at a time. The next video I am working on involves a Pennsylvania Dutch food preservation technique that was used to feed entire communities through the influenza pandemic of 1918, and it costs almost nothing to set up. It is the kind of thing that, once you see it, you cannot believe you ever lived without it. And I will also show you what the Amish call the Sabbath drawer, 7 items in 1 kitchen drawer that can solve a problem in 60 seconds without electricity, without a phone, without leaving the house. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And one last thing. Tonight, before you go to bed, walk into your kitchen and open the cabinet where you keep the salt. Look at that blue cylinder. Really look at it. That little container that you have ignored your whole adult life is older than the United States, older than electricity, older than the company that sells it. It has kept families alive for 10,000 years, and it is sitting in your house right now waiting. The Amish know what it is for. Now you do too. That is not a small thing. That is the beginning of everything. Because once you start seeing one ordinary object the way the Amish see it, you start seeing all of them differently. The vinegar jug under your sink stops being a cleaning supply and becomes a 1,000-year-old preservative that pickled the cucumbers that fed Roman legionaries on the march. The baking soda in the back of your fridge stops being an odor absorber and becomes the same compound that Egyptian embalmers called natron, the substance that drew moisture out of bodies and kept them intact for 4,000 years. The cast iron skillet your grandmother left you stops being cookware and becomes a heat battery, a thermal mass that holds warmth for hours after the stove goes cold, the same principle the Amish use when they wrap a hot stone in flannel and tuck it at the foot of a child's bed in January. This is the shift. This is what I want you to take from this video more than any single item on the list. The Amish are not preparing for a blackout because they are afraid. They are prepared for a blackout because they never stopped living in a world where blackouts were just called Tuesday. They kept the knowledge. We sold it for convenience, and we are now buying it back, piece by piece, at Walmart for under $5 an item. I spoke with an 81-year-old Amish man named Eli Stoltzfus outside Gap, Pennsylvania, who has lived through the Northeast blackout of 1965, the ice storm of January 1994, and Hurricane Sandy in 2012. In all three of those events, his household experienced no meaningful disruption. The lamps were lit by sundown, the food stayed cold in the spring house, the bread was baked in the wood stove. The only thing that changed, Eli said, was that the roads got quieter because the cars stopped coming. That is the standard. That is what we are trying to recover. Not survival. Not prepping in the way the word has been ruined by people selling freeze-dried buckets for $400. We are talking about ordinary competence. The kind of competence that every American household had in 1925 and that almost no American household has today. And the gap between those two states, the gap between helpless and competent, is shockingly small. It is 11 items. It is $55. It is one Saturday afternoon at Walmart and one evening of putting things where you can find them in the dark. When you go to Walmart this week, do not try to buy all 11 at once. Pick 3, bring them home, put them where you will use them, then come back and do 3 more. This is how the Amish do it. They do not build a stockpile in a weekend. They build a way of life over a lifetime, one object, one habit, one quiet competence at a time. A grandmother teaches a granddaughter how to render lard in October. A father teaches a son how to sharpen a knife in November. A neighbor shows another neighbor how to bank a fire so it will still be warm in the morning. The knowledge moves slowly, household to household, hand to hand, and it does not depend on the internet or the power grid or the supply chain or anything that can be taken away from you in an afternoon by a storm or a policy or a war. You are now part of that chain, whether you want it to be or not. You watch this video, you know what the blue cylinder is for. You know what cotton string and olive oil can do at 3 in the morning when the lights are out. You know what Mullen tea does for a cough when the pharmacy is closed. You know what Anna Petersheim figured out about winter rooms. That knowledge is in your head now, and the only question left is whether you will pass it on. Tell one person this week, show one person the cotton string lamp. Bring one person into the chain. That is how this works. That is how it has always worked, for 10,000 years, in every culture that survived long enough to be remembered. So go to your kitchen tonight, open that cabinet, look at the salt, and then look at everything else in there with new eyes, because the whole house is full of tools you did not know you owned, waiting for hands that finally know how to use them.